The issue of local government autonomy was this week thrown straight back into the front burner when President Muhammadu Buhari told classmates at the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies that state governors have been stealing allocations meant for the development of local government areas in the country. Just before the president spoke, Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Claire Magba, had accused Nigerian state governors of being responsible for spreading endemic poverty through their development of grandiose infrastructure at the expense of investment in microeconomic, people-friendly projects. As if on cue, Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, had gone to town with figures suggesting that since the inception of the Buhari administration in 2015, the federal government had released to state governments about 6.5 trillion naira. As many will expect, some of the governors have on their own spoken up in defense of their management of funds. To dissect these issues one after the other, we are now being joined by Adeni Kunnu, researcher and public affairs analyst, with a view to revisiting the small matter of the call for increased autonomy for the third tier of government in Nigeria. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Kunnu.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you.
It's a privilege to be here again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Always good to have you.
Yeah.
Well, the president has returned to his favorite song, which is to say that the governors are stealing the local government fund.
Yeah.
That they are now allowing the local government to breathe.
Yeah.
I believe that a lot of people will agree with the president.
Yeah.
But then a few governors have spoken up. Rivers, Benue, Kwara, to say that name, absolutely, yes, name the states or the governors that are guilty, but we are not part of it. The president says this every time, but then nothing gets done. We can't see any fundamental changes other than give a broad canvas of accusation. Is this how President Buhari will finish his 8-year term without solving that problem that seems to be dire, and that seems to be important to him, but then he's not doing anything about it?
Let me say that the president appears frustrated. You have your allegiance to the party, you have your limitation with governors that are of the opposition party, and you also have recalcitrant party members as governors. So it's a three-angle problem that the president is facing. He has released approximately 7 trillion, but the larger picture is in 10 years, we've had the administration of Nigeria release supposedly to local governments about 16.4 trillion naira. And these are, of course, part of the petroleum remittances and tax receipts that got to the local government supposedly. But when we look at the local government, we find out that it is an irony that 16.4 trillion in naira has been given to them. Of course, apart from these that has been collected in about 8 years, from this president to the governors, and nothing is done about it. And I think I need to latch onto your introduction here. Claire Magba, the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, went to the 109 senatorial districts in the country to actually examine the reason for poverty. Do not forget about 211 million, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, seems the number of our population, 63% of that living below the poverty line. And if we check multidimensional, in fact, multidimensional, to give you a lot of pictures there, then about 72% of those living below the multidimensional poverty line are in the rural areas. And the concern is we continue to see flyovers in city centers, but the real issue, as stated by Claire Magba, will be that in the interiors of these states are land spaces wasting, begging for agricultural activities. And that is one way to deal with it. If you also check, the multidimensional poverty index given shows that Ondo State appears least on what we have. And one of the areas that has actually helped Ondo to get out of it is indeed agricultural endeavors. But let's go back to this issue of concern now. I think it is completely irresponsible on the part of the Niger Delta governors, because from the list we have, Akwa Ibom State had the lion's share.
That's right.
And you have Cross River had the lowest of shares, less than 500 million. We're looking at this particular state, and people are not even talking about a place like, let me say, for instance, the Abias of this world, the Imos of this world, that got in excess of about 2 billion out of that money. So the picture given here is These particular executive governors have acted unexecutively. Let me use that word. First, when you collect this money, you're supposed to tell your people that this particular derivation has come to, because that is the process. You hold a press conference, you tell them, because let's look at it. For instance, let's do Delta State oil producing communities. According to the rule book of that, about 50% of what is accruable to Delta State, which from records got the second highest amount, is that you should take 50%. So if you got maybe, for instance, 100 billion naira, you're supposed to put it in half, 50 billion. 50 billion goes straight to the oil producing communities to be shared by them. And that is according to the rule books. It means, therefore, that the communities from where this oil has been got has been raped of what should come to them. I have been to the creeks. Let me give you an example. If you go to Ahoda in River State, for instance, where the I've been to the creeks, where the pipelines run, the abject poverty that the people are surrounded by, you'd expect that before this time. Of course, some wiki has come out to tell the world that this is what he has used it for. Yes, the people of Niger Delta, particularly in River State, will benefit. But beyond that is that the life of the people from where this particular resources are tapped must actually be better. People are living in this multidimensional poverty is just a sweet expression. Wicked and harrowing poverty in communities where these are got from. And these governors go free because the people themselves have been so disarmed. They are not able to use that. It's their right. For the records, please.
Who's right, please?
The right of the people from where this oil gets taken to have access to that funds. So oftentimes when we see governors take, for instance, when they question them, we've had reactions from the governor of Akwa Ibom State, we've had reaction from the governor of Delta State, the spokesperson, who was telling us that they took some monies. Let me tell you, whilst this money was being released, they should give an explanation why they kept going for loans when the monies that belong to the people had been given to them. The governor of Akwa Ibom State had the guts to say that the money has been included in the budget of the state. That is the most ridiculous thing. And there are certain things that get to idiotic proportions here. The monies released to you cannot be included in the budget because there are statements of direction regarding how that money is used.
Yeah. So
we have somebody basking in illegality and has the temerity to even come out to tell us that that money has been... You can't take what belongs to the community and say it's for the budget. No. You have certain monies that come to you regularly. Don't forget, these are accruals from the beginning of the Fourth Republic, and these payments have been... So that means people who should have gotten this money, some of their family members have died. Let's say, for instance, the 50%, or if some state about 45% to the communities, why has it not gotten to them? So these are critical questions that we should ask.
So are you saying that the president isn't, in fact, a broken record, as we've alluded to? Because we
let's
spoke about this quite extensively yesterday.
Okay.
Are you saying that there's so much more to the picture than we can see? Because surely there must be some powers within his rights that where this can be addressed. So what's the way forward?
Let's say this first. Do not forget that there were certain executive orders signed by the president from last year, third, fourth quarter to this year, but they went to court to actually invalidate those executive orders. Part of the executive order was to have remittances made directly to the local government so that at least a level of lease of life can come to local council development areas. Now, the president believes, don't forget that politics has its brickbats, and this is one of it. The president understands that to a great extent, the federal government takes over 50% of what accrues to the country every month. And people would expect more from the federal government. So apart from the areas where the federal government should expectedly have worked on, is the reality of this as well. Because oftentimes we talk about the federal government often. But let's also zoom the lens on the state government that should actually complement whatever it is the federal government is doing. I said here at the beginning that about 16.4 trillion has been received within the past 10 years. So let me take 2 trillion out of that money and say in the past 8 years, apart from this money's released, the respective state governments, local government's money is about 14 trillion. So if we go to our respective hometowns, I'm from here, I have certain places that I go to, I don't see a reflection of part of that 14 trillion supposedly that's been released. Let me also tell you this.
You don't see a reflection in Badagry?
No. In fact, Badagry is worse off. Let me say this. For many people who understand what politics is, Even if an area, because up until this point, Badagry has always been an area where they stand with the opposition, not so much, that is how it is. They think for themselves. The bandwagon effect has not been something that sweeps Badagry off. But the state remains the gateway to West African countries. It should be an area adorned where the economic potentialities are maximized, not for selfish reasons. Don't forget that we'll be having a lot of maritime activities there sooner than later. I'm saying here that certain examples should be taken from communities that have failed, and things like this make communities begin to ask questions, and before you know, militants are coming up, because some of the militants that I have met in the Niger Delta have studied as far as obtaining PhD. Very educated people that I've met. I've met with Asari Dokubo. I've spoken to a lot of these men in the course of what I do as a researcher, and I found out that they are not empty-headed people. They understand the dynamics. And that is why at times when they tell government, we will do this, because they understand that the figures are obvious, but not gotten to them. Let me say this. 93.5 billion within the same 10-year period has actually been spent by state governors to administer local government. And we also don't see that. So what happens when the money hits the account of the state government? They take a chunk of it and give the rest. Then the local government chairman also help themselves with a little. And that is why we often do not see so much of impact within the locality. So the president...
Why can't the State House of Assembly's checkmate?
No, the State House of Assembly, let me tell you this. Within the last 8, 9, 10 years also, we've had about, let me say, 80-something local council elections, about 80-something within the last decade. 80 of those have been won by the state governments. And why? The overbearing influence of the state government on them. And there's another thing you've asked that has propelled this. When we did the penultimate alteration of the constitution of the country, and they sent to state assemblies the need for them to actually be free from the jugular, ridiculously and painfully, the state government or state assembly that we continue to advocate for to be emancipated did not agree to being free from the bondage they've kept them by the respective state government.
Only 10 signed.
Only 10 signed. And you know that could not have been 2/3 majority. We're talking about 36 states of the federation. So you have to ask yourself the question, where really is the problem? And that is why we need really, at the respective state assemblies, different political parties winning election to actually create a balance. Because let me tell you this, if for instance, 1 or 2 opposition parties continue to take the seat of power in respective state assemblies across the country, there is no way legislation at the state assembly could be as effective as expected by the people who voted them to office, because you'd always have an overriding majority. And even if people have state assemblies where there is uniformity of party representation, you should have independent-minded lawmakers who could actually call the bluff if legislation contradicts the purpose or their terms of reference, because ultimately they are responsible to the people. There's a trending video this week from Gambia, Banjul South, where the woman said, we were not called to actually get wealth. You can't increase your salary allocation when the people of Banjul South are suffering. And that is the kind of opposition. So you should have people who can say, I wasn't voted for by anybody here, I was voted for by the people. And that also boils down to the importance of real political education. Let me say this. Unless the people we know are able to engage as patriots to shore up the knowledge quotient of communities, we are on a long run or wild goose chase. Because for people to actually be emancipated and understand that when this is not happening, for instance, since the government released this, I've not seen up to 6 non-governmental organizations. The one that is most popular is SERAP, that continues to, but it is not enough to give life to issues like this. You should have across the states of the federation very strong and empowered civil society organizations that have the backing of legal practitioners and colossus at that, who can engage government at that level to solve this problem.
But looking at the reality and practicality of these options that you've just put forward, are we in the right environment to make that happen? Are these the only options that we have, by the way? Are these our only viable options to get out of this cycle?
I have to say that elites very, very, very important in the plan to change this particular short-handing of the citizens. Let me say this. One of what I must commend your organization for is that in this country at the moment, I don't think any organization rivals Arise in terms of taking up issues where people don't dare to tread. That is one agency of change, because the media is a powerful tool. And some of us on our respective platforms who have decided to choose the noble path of bringing critical issues to the front burner, where we sensitize people to say no to certain issues. And when they come in, for instance, I have 2 numbers already of some people that have been calling to collect people's PVCs so that they can actually give them money in exchange. People like that will be exposed, and people identify them because they already have names to their phone numbers. So that is one way of preventing it. And I need to say this. Some researchers have said for certain information to stick, you need to say it 1,000 times. So perhaps maybe this is the 500th time that we are saying it. We still have about 500 times more to go, because let me say this, the only country we have where we can't be ridiculed, where we feel that our humanity won't be debased, is Nigeria. And consistency of questions that we ask, consistency of saying no, consistency of telling people you have been cheated, you should not do that, and this is the right path to seeking redress. This thing, sooner than later, we're talking about gathering clouds. When the rain pours, it pours very hard. So I say that this is one of the ways we can do it to ensure that this malfeasance stops. Okay, look at it. The governors kept quiet. When on October 20th, Nyesom Wike said, it is the derivation I got that I'm using. People started asking questions. Now the governors have started speaking. They didn't speak before. So that is some impact that we see. Now you have spoken. Now the second level is to say, since you've gotten this and the federal government has said it and they did not deny it, because none of them has come to say, we did not collect this money. So it means that you collected the money. It is now for the respective legal practitioners in these communities that should have this money to take the state government to court, because the rule book says it belongs to the community. With doing that, you're unsettling them. And if the state government refuses to do that, another question comes. You sensitize the people. We can't vote for you because you did this. Because let me tell you, this is a critical point for the people to get what belongs to them. For instance, people don't know. Kogi State got its first 13% derivation about a month ago. People should ask questions, the communities. Lagos State has been getting its accrual since Ambode was, and to a great extent, Ambode was very open regarding that, because I follow certain stories at that period, and of course, Lagos has been collecting too. So that particular collection of Lagos also, we should have certain explanation. I'm from here, I'm from Badagry. The place where they are exploring the oil is practically my community. So the question should be asked, the 13% derivation that has been coming to Babaje Sanwo-Olu administration, Ogasa, explain it. 4 years has come, another election cycle is coming. Can you tell me, just push the information so that we'll verify. We are not saying that the government has stolen, but we say the information.
How did you use it?
How did you use it? Because I remember when I followed Ambody's own, there were certain things that I still have in my archives regarding, okay, the disbursement, who headed that ministry, and certain activities there, what questions were. And so for Babaje Sanwo-Olu, what I expect him to do is, sir, you have collected this 13%. I'm from Lagos here. Can you just, at the punch of a button, allow me to have access so that when I go to my community in Badagry, I can call people leveraging the strength of the media. Did you people collect this? If you did, who took it? So that I can come back to the platform of a global media and say, yes, it was given. And I think that doing this,
just to cut you,
yes, please.
I want you to return to the local government.
Yes, sir.
Because what Claire Magba, the Minister of State for
budget and national plan,
absolutely said, is very instructive.
Yes, sir.
That yes, governors have mountain bridges and flyovers, etc. But then the rural communities. But then a lot of people will say that Claire Magba is an APC minister. What you are saying is right. But then, as at before last week, APC controlled 22 states. It's now down to 21 because of Osun State that has gone to PDP. If all the governors in APC or all the states in APC had complied to the kind of a thing that Kremagba is talking about, we won't have, governors that would just be lording it over local government, because what is canvassing for lies strictly within the domain of the local government chairman, but they are not being allowed to do what they are supposed to.
Let me say this. We need to do a lot of rethinking with the constitution of the country. I hold a very strong position regarding the Constitution, that the Constitution itself is a fraud foisted on Nigerians. But we do not have an alternative ground norm. So let us look at that Constitution. There are certain things that have been blatantly disregarded in that Constitution. Let's go to Section 10 that tells us there shall not be state religion. Section 10 is about the shortest of the portions of the Constitution. That simply means that every state in this country that has Sharia as religion has contravened Section 10. You are supposed to have a state where people won't say that this is the religion we practice. For instance, you know how much of breweries and their bottles and activities have been destroyed in Kunnu. Yet Kunnu takes money from the sale of alcohol, whereas it tells you that it's a Sharia state, and it destroys bottles. Also in the same Kunnu, there are people who have dreadlocks who have been stopped by the Hisbah police and their hair scraped off. You are violating people's. So I'm saying that that Constitution itself is disregarded. So you have to ask me, if people have the temerity to disregard the Constitution of the country, how much more local government? If the book that is sovereign is disregarded, how much more a local government? And the
but an opportunity presented itself for the local government autonomy. Only 10 states sign. We can take the example of Lagos State, which says, okay, the reason why we wouldn't sign at this point is because we're still dealing with the issue of 20 local governments versus the 37 local
No, sir. That's not consequential here. Let's say it. We know that according to the Constitution, the states, the recognition of only 20 local governments is there. If they told us that, has that affected the functionality of the 37 local council development areas? No, they still function. The state, within its capacity and strategy, has been able to manage the administration of funds that officially comes to the 20 local government areas, and has also been able to use its internal revenue to support what comes to allow the respective local council development area. In fact, for people who do not understand what the Constitution's position is, we often think that Lagos has 57 local government areas because of the seamless management strategy of the state. So when lawmakers tell you that they are still battling with that, I think there is no nexus, sir, between battling with that. No, these are completely different issues. Okay, if that is the case, let us work with the law. 20 local government areas, let them be the only ones to vote. And say, since the Constitution recognizes 20, all of you, Ajoromi fellow do local government, all the ones that are in the Constitution, oh yeah, you are the only ones that can participate in this. Bearing in mind that that's what the Constitution recognizes. And when they vote, and 15, 16, or 17 says yes, then we go with the law. That is the law. That's a smart way to do. So let people not be smart by a quarter here, because that's not a smart way to make a statement.
I agree with you, but I'm saying remove Lagos. There are 25 other states who didn't sign off on the government
this is it.
Bill.
So let's also look at it. How did the local governments in those respective areas eventually choose those who led them? Let's say this. Oftentimes we forget that the powers to make a change begins with an individual resolving that it is possible. The greatest of inventions have been made by people who were resolute. You don't believe in them, they stayed put. Mandela, 27 years. We can even use President Muhammadu Buhari. He was in the wilderness for three successive times or attempts, until it got to a time the Lagos Southwest Alliance felt, perhaps we can even support this man because his consistency paid off. That is also a theory we must study. In all of the iniquity of President Muhammadu Buhari, let us look at him as a lesson in resilience and not giving up. Okay. That is something that people should learn from him. He can't believe that he will become a president. He kept at it. Forget about another chapter of his incapacity. But with regard to resilience, it means therefore that at the level of a locality, the people who believe they can impact should begin by doing one thing, believing that they may not accept me the first time, because the journey of assuming power is not a piece of cake. So if you believe that you have the capacity to lead people, what do? You put a 10, 15-year map of ascending even the position of a local government, because you have a lot of people to deal with. First, you have to deal with your resolve. You have to tell yourself, I can fail 3 times, maybe the 4th time I'll make it. Second, you need to galvanize lots of things so that the people who believe in your... At first, you could be... The first attempt, you may be the only person. The second attempt, you have some people. The third attempt, when they see you coming, okay, make we even see what's in this person get. Then they come close to you, then you begin to amass. The magnetic force start coming. Don't forget, magnetic pull itself in physics has a lot of things that it entails. It is with this that I begin to create impact that will allow you to say, okay, the right mindset, the right people, the right strategy, because it's a journey. But many people now want to just come and take part. No, you are dealing with bulwark. For you to break that line, you need consistency. Then you have to believe in yourself. Some people, when they come once, twice, they fizzle out. So I'm saying here that the strategy we can put in place to actually impact self-belief by the individual who seeks power. Secondly, as I'm speaking to the world right now, it is that people who have like minds more believe in their capacity to make a change. There are people who always, I've corrected people for the past 6 months who say, our votes don't matter. I tell them, you are part of the problem. What the people who vote don't understand is that the power they have only needs to be used for this impact to be created.
All right, Mr. Kunnu, but...
sorry,
I know, because we're trying to get a word in.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Could part of the problem be that people don't see local government chairmen as mayors, like you have in America, as potential governors? Because if they see them in that manner, then they will fight with the local government to say that the governors should not treat them, because governors don't allow president to treat them like boys.
Yeah.
They are CEOs of their states.
Yeah.
The same way that local government chairmen ought to be CEOs and mayors of their domains.
Let me tell you why that may be difficult until we address it from the Constitution. Is that there has to be a level of release for local government areas according to the Constitution. In fact, the issue of...
The Constitution has done this.
The Constitution, it says any Constitution that allows this kind of stealing to take place is ineffective. For instance, let me tell you why I've said this. Within the past 1.5 months, they have called for the arrest of the EFCC chairman. He has explained himself. They have called for the arrest of the IGP.
Yeah.
Now, Constable won't go arrest IGP. They have called for the arrest of the Chief of Army Staff. Nobody has been able to effect the court ruling. It is the Constitution that supposedly gives power, but the same Constitution is so toothless, so spineless, so weak. Immediately that injunction or verdict is reached, you are supposed to send men who are from the military, go straight, arrest these people, because a court has given, it's a court order, immediately. But the IGP is still going to office, whereas there is a verdict on his head that should be arrested. The Chief of Army Staff, another person, should have been arrested. So I'm saying that if a constitution cannot allow certain things to take place, then it is at best a dysfunctional constitution, and it's not helpful. It is the same way, even if you say the Constitution tells us, has that been effected? It means that there's something problematic about what should guide our
but
leaders.
don't we have a bigger problem? Because I'm glad you're talking about this now, because I wasn't going to talk about punitive measures, something that we spoke about, because we did say that if he's so against it, this is the president now. How come it keeps happening? How come he keeps talking about it? What would you do differently? You've just addressed the ineffectiveness of the Constitution. Do we have a big problem then?
Well, it's a big problem, and that's why I've told those who care to listen that the first material we should throw out with any baby and the bathwater that it has is this Constitution. Let me tell you, this Constitution has a lot of loggerheads, especially when we compare other documents. Look at, for instance, when we had Ibrahim Mago as the helmsman of the EFCC. Somebody was in office, and there were brickbats among the between the provisions of the Constitution and the EFCC Act. And for that period of time, Ibrahim Mago was in office, and even the lawmakers at the federal level were practically helpless in effecting the position that there cannot be somebody in office because certain rules says it can't be there. So I'm saying that the first problem is that if this country wants to work for everybody, is to look at this Constitution and say, this Constitution, you have done your worst. Because after all of the people that have been saying, well, they went around the country before the Constitution. No, they are liars. The military cannot give us a Constitution. It's a Constitution produced under the army green. So when people talk about this Constitution as something that we need, I tell people, why are people talking as if the basic education and knowledge that you have is lost on them? How can the military give us a Constitution? If we told you that the military cannot bear rule, how How then are you still using the constitution given to you by the military? Because according to law, they shouldn't be in office in the first place. So everything that comes with the military, you have to try and set it aside. So the first thing we need to do is to sit that constitutional conference or sovereign national conference that they are afraid of. We will have it. We will have all that they are afraid of. We will have a constitution. I'm a patriot. I have recommended on different platforms, even in the international media, we cannot have this country break up. So what will make this country work for all is to first of all throw away this wicked paperwork, burn it and throw it out, and sit. We need about 6-8 months or even 1 year to get a proper document that addresses majority problem, minority problem, and the constitution must also make it sacrosanct. For instance, we are going into an election. We had our last census 2006, disputed census. We don't even know the population of the country. We have been dealing with estimates.
Right.
How do you even solve the problem of the country
Kunnu,
without data to work with?
All right, Mr.
These are very, very important issues, people.
Yes, quite a number of them. And of course, most importantly, let's do away with the biggest problem first, right? All right. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Kunnu,
I appreciate
for
you
joining us
inviting me.
today.
Thank you for the
very
privilege.
much.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks
grateful.
a lot.
Thank you.